Flake.com was the portal for breakfast cereal.
It was people were piling into the industry by the month. It was open up the paper and see 20 new businesses opened up every day, and people were piling in. So a majority of it was scams.
They didn't actually sell breakfast cereal, but they had like information about it, and they had like pictures of flakes and recipes and things.
People started to look at the numbers and the size that the internet could grow to, and they realized that, my God, Amazon.com could be as big as 10 Walmarts.
Americans, and this just encapsulates the whole thing right here. Americans spend more money each year on breakfast cereal than they do on music, than they do on CDs.
I joined this company and I walk into an office, at least in New York, and then when I visited in LA, 3 days later, first class, I walk into offices where in every office that you walk into, people don't know what they're supposed to be doing.
And there were people who did this and made tons of money, and there were a lot of people who did this, made tons of money, and tried to hide it. And they're still trying to hide it.
You guys are paying yourself $1 million a year. This is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. You know, you expect this to succeed as a business? Oh yeah, we got Dell, we got Pepsi, we got this, we got that. I said, well then you found some suckers.
The thing is, nobody gives a shit about cereal. Like, you don't like read up on your favorite cereal and see how it's doing and how it's, it's like, it's just something you buy, you know?
A bunch of guys
whacking off,
trying to get dates.
Trying to get dates and trying to make some cash, just like they like to.
It's like singing in the shower and thinking you're great. That's what this was, you know? Everybody was singing in the shower and touching themselves, and it felt good, you know? And they're thinking, you know what, it feels good, it sounds good, I must be good, you know?
We knew probably 6-7 months in, it was done.
The gentleman across the table from me, I'll never forget it, he looks at me and he says, we're prepared to offer you $11 million.
Hallelujah.
In the mid-1990s came the World Wide Web, and with it, a whole new way of thinking about the economy and the workplace. And guys like me, your humble host, Chaz Maston, suddenly got business cards that said things like Internet Engineer on them. I gave up my job as a comic rap artist.
Easterling, taco burrito, Easterling, taco burrito, Easterling, taco burrito.
It wasn't going too well anyhow. And I started playing the dot-com game. You see, I wasn't a kid anymore. Now, I had responsibilities. People depended on me and my knowledge. It changed my life. You see, I was getting paid for being a geek, which I usually did for free.
See, what you got a lot of like effects. You got phase effects.
I was paying off my credit card bills, I was picking up bar tabs, I was going to conventions in Vegas. But like a million other people, my party didn't last.
So that was an indicator 2 weeks ago when that check bounced. But then I thought, oh, well, maybe he's getting some more in or something. But, he just sent out this email. I'll send it to you, too. It just says, look, maybe some money's coming in early September, but...
In the spring of 2000, the public markets lost confidence in the internet revolution. Dot-com stocks crashed, billions of dollars in venture capital evaporated overnight, jobs started disappearing, and I began to question my own faith in the internet economy. And so, with work getting scarce, instead of going to Europe or grad school like some former dot-commers, instead of trying to impress a new employer with my IT and biz dev skills, I went around our great nation and found out what happened to the dot-coms. What happened to the money, to the people, and to the dream of the new internet economy? And the things I found out are gonna blow your mind.
Speed. Communications Revolution, Scene 1, Take 1. Action.
The dot-coms weren't some obscure phenomenon. Over $5 trillion was poured into internet companies during the second half of the 1990s. How much is $1 trillion? Well, we talked to some people, and it turns out that nobody knows. But $1 billion, that's easy. You see, the program to develop the atomic bomb cost the U.S. government approximately $20 billion back in the 1940s. And then, over a 10-year period in the 1960s, the same amount, $20 billion, was spent to send a man to the moon. In 1999 alone, well over $20 billion in venture capital was poured into dot-com startups. So, in essence, each generation had a choice. You could end a war and usher in a new stage of civilization. You could explore the unknown and empower a generation. Or you could make a JavaScript rollover, which crashes most browsers. But back in the halcyon days of the net, money just kept pouring in, like it had for so many other technological innovations in the past.
Historically, it does happen over and over again, all sorts of technologies. So there was nothing new. This was better publicized probably and maybe a bit more extreme.
There may be mistakenly a view that there's something different about this boom than prior booms. And you know what? I don't think there is. If you look back through American economic history, the telegraph mania in the 1840s was huge.
I showed a chart of RCA from 1923 to 1935. And if you go back to the 20s, radio was the transformational technology that really helped to change the shape of the American economy.
The radio craze was what really pushed Wall Street in the 1920s.
The 80s, the early 80s, there was the PC business. There, you know, not all of them were public, but the Epsons.
This has been true with previous technological innovations in our country.
The Coronas.
Electricity.
The railroad.
RCA.
Electricity.
The Columbias.
The car.
The Eagles that went public for one day. They went up and they collapsed. Then in the mid-80s, you had the Borlands, the Multimates, the WordStars, the Ashton Tates with D-Base, and they went up and they collapsed.
And all these industries that you could argue that sure they crest a little too high then they crash, but you know that's the way the system works because you know money rushes in because no one knows what the best profit opportunities are, and it has to be sorted out in sort of this in a competitive climate, and no one really knows what consumers are going to want, and so it's got to be sorted out by the market.
In many ways, there were a great number of parallels between radio and the internet. It created a national community at the time. It created a new entertainment form, a new information medium, and the stocks reflected the enthusiasm that went along with that kind of industry. RCA went from 3 on a split adjusted basis in 1923 all the way up to 114 in 1929 and back to 3 by 1935, and RCA would only get back to 114 in about 1964 at the height of the color TV craze in which it also participated. So people rejected that analysis as flawed and suggested that there were no parallels and went ahead and bought internet stocks with reckless abandon.
According to these business guys and Washington think tank gurus, this technology bubble thing has happened over and over again throughout history. But where did the money for this one come from? Because it sure didn't come from my bank account circa 1994.
People had money, you know, because it came toward the tail end of what was a 10-year boom. And there was just a tremendous appetite for startups. And you saw a lot of highly capitalized VC funds set up. And they were willing to make a lot of bets. You know, they threw a lot of money against the wall, hoping for the big strike.
As well, you had capital gains taxes being cut in 1978 and then 81. Suddenly, it made a lot of sense to fund risky startup ventures that, you know, may make it big in the future. So you had these sort of regulatory and tax changes that occurred that caused venture capital to basically go from nowhere to about $50 billion a year most recently.
An incredible economy which was generating excess cash. You had pension funds that at that point were fully funded, and so a lot of private equity coming to the hands of the venture capital community. And I think the internet and everything that surrounded it had a tremendous amount of energy to basically attract that kind of capital.
And then you had people that saw the Kleiner Perkins or the benchmarks, you know, putting in 6 figures into an eBay and making back 9 figures. And they said, well, we're just as smart as them. And so they want to push the envelope themselves. And that's why there was this frenzy. So there was a feeding frenzy.
You had a very open environment for investment in the country. We were in a period where there was deregulation, a certain kind of enshrinement of markets and capitalism, a lot of entrepreneurialism. You know, that's a very volatile brew. You put those things together, you get a tech explosion.
Okay, money was there, but money is always out there. There was something different about this revolution. The speed with which it all occurred, enabled by the paradigm-shifting velocity of the new technology itself. The net grew faster than any technology in human history. It took 46 years for electricity to be in 30% of American homes, and 38 years for the telephone to be in 30% of homes, and 17 years for TV. But the internet did it in 7 years. And right now, over 70% of Americans use the net. It's like a virus. It keeps spreading into your cell phone and your kitchen appliances and your toothpaste, and you just can't stop it.
One of the things that we saw happening in 98 and 99, you know, as we were raising our money is what was going on in this whole concept of internet speed.
There's an argument, in fact, that, you know, the industry grew too quickly, that initially 10, 15 years ago, the industry was small enough, they really could do good, careful research to see what was going to be the next big thing, but the money just started piling in so quickly that, you know, it was hard to get, you know, good expertise and do good due diligence across the board.
In the internet world, if you planned out more than 2 quarters, you know, you were probably going to be toast.
The speed with which the bubble grew in the internet arena was a function of the technology itself. There were a lot of enabling technologies that allowed money to move far more quickly than it used to. And then the speed with which information is disseminated now also aided and abetted the process. I mean, with the advent of CNBC or Financial News Network before it, you had this real-time coverage of the financial markets that didn't exist in other periods.
So things move so fast, and how could anybody, I mean, you had to be really smart or a psychic to predict what was going to happen next. And the internet went from avatars to VRML to, you know, to JavaScript to Flash. Flash was going to change the way the internet was done. Streaming video was going to change the way it was done. MP3s recently were going to change the way the internet, you know, functions, and MP3.com and Napster, you know. All those things were going to change the world, and they changed the world for about a month.
So the net was fast, the markets were fast, investment was fast, and perhaps, just perhaps, people were drinking a little too much coffee to keep up. I got this theory that coffee really is to blame. It gets people very excited, right, and idealistic, and also they want to invest money when they're drinking coffee. How big of a role do you think coffee played in the creation of the bubble?
You know, I noticed that in February of 2000, everybody for some reason started drinking juice and not coffee, and then the market crashed. So I think you might be onto something here.
I think it's true because you need energy to stay awake, because all these internet companies had weird hours. You know, they'd always come in later in the day and they needed to kickstart the day. So they come in and kickstart the day, and, you know, coffee kept them going throughout the whole deal.
I think the dot-com bubble and coffee are synonymous. Yet another coffee shop down the tubes. And I think it's definitely related. This is like corner of 23rd, the crossroads in the beginning of Silicon Alley.
Starbucks and Red Bull, twin culprits. It's possible. I mean, I don't think caffeine was behind the madness. I think it was just sort of capitalist frenzy.
Personally, I drink a lot of Red Bull. You know,
the energy drink.
Yeah, that's my drug.
Yeah. Well, caffeine and
I don't drink coffee because it makes me shit. But I like
that's
Red
why
Bull.
I drink coffee, though. Phil, it's great. I mean, it keeps you regular. Red Bull doesn't make you shit?
No, Red Bull just makes me crazy. And I take a lot of vitamin B12.
They would get the supercharger, you know, which is like the death charge. It's you know, regular coffee with it gets a shot of espresso in it. So that's the usual one.
In the mid-1990s, investors were loaded to the gills with cash and looking for someplace to put it. And one of the reasons the investors chose to put their money in dot-coms was because there were some early success stories that made them really believe it was a good ride to buy a ticket for. And nobody else made people believe in the potential of the net as a business medium like Mark Cuban. This guy sold broadcast.com to Yahoo in 1999 for nearly $6 billion. That's billion with a B. The company was 4 years old. After Mark Cuban cashed in on his Yahoo stock, he went and bought his favorite NBA team, the Dallas Mavericks.
Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
Broadcast.com.
Yeah, oh boy, he cleaned up, didn't he?
Yeah, what was the industry take on Broadcast.com? Because it was a little bit outside of Silicon Valley.
Good deal, Mark. Do it again.
Everyone we talked to says Mark Cuban was the guy that we looked to and said he was a success story. He was the mythological.
Poor guys.
No, but you were the myth of the IPO and selling the company and making the billions of dollars. Yeah,
I am.
You are. When you started Broadcast.com, what was the goal? What were you guys shooting for?
The goal really was to try to create a broadcast network on the internet, and that's what we called ourselves. And we tried to take advantage of my sales and technology expertise. We started out the second bedroom of my house and started with a $2,900, like $3,000 Packard Bell PC and a $49 Super Radio and an ISDN line. We didn't have this big glorious plan. It was keep costs low. I mean, our first office was 1,500. Well, 1,500 grew to 3,000 square feet. Reused furniture. This is the furniture I have from my very first business. Notice my chair is still broken like it was then. The furniture you see over here was the same furniture. We bought, used chairs, and our goal in hiring people was they had to be less than $10 an hour.
$10 an hour sure doesn't seem like a lot of money to me. But then again, if you had stock in Mark's company on the day of the IPO, you probably weren't complaining about your paycheck.
What was it like the day that you went public and your stock went from $18 to $62?
It was a pretty bizarre day. The night before we knew that the demand was pretty solid, that was big, and we had to have the conversation of what we were going to price it at, $18 or $19, because there were rules on how much you could increase the price, and we'd already increased it from 12 to 18, and we kind of made a marketing decision that we knew, because we were with Morgan Stanley and they had taken Netscape out, that we had a chance to be the biggest IPO in history. That would be a great marketing event. So we rolled that dice and it worked for us. But even then, when we got up that morning, we went out and had a few cocktails that night, and then we got up that morning not feeling so well, but we went to the NASDAQ, and that was the first time that they'd brought people in for an opening with their new NASDAQ wall that they've since moved. And so it was a big event for them, it was a big event for us, and we were taking bets in the car about where we were going to open. And I was the most aggressive, and I remember betting $34 at the high end. And so it came 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock, and we hadn't opened yet, and they're telling us it could be higher. And we're like, oh my, and then the ticker starts coming across, and it was like $68, 69, 72, and I'm like, oh my Lord. People are like, oh, we gotta go celebrate. I'm like, that's cool, but we gotta get the hell out of here. We gotta go to work, They were like, we got to go have a party. When we get back, we're going to have this. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. We're not going to have a party to celebrate because we haven't done anything. We convinced people to buy a stock, but the company hasn't done anything. When you don't celebrate the IPO, that's not an accomplishment. That just means people believed in you. And if they believed in you, it means you better damn well get to work. The expectations, the fact that we've had such a great IPO just means the expectations are higher.
Mark Cuban built a business on sales, teamwork, and technology, and keeping the same broken office furniture since his first business in 1983. And once you make the big time, you're allowed to do stuff like buy a $40 million Learjet over the internet.
You bought the jet over the internet. Did you fill out a form?
No, I sent an email. I did all the research. I sent an email and said, I want to buy it. Can I do a test drive? And they said, yeah. You know, and I said, okay, if I test drive it, I'll write you a check.
Okay.
They said, sure, we'll take your check. It's that simple.
So it wasn't like a add to cart kind of thing?
Well, no. It wasn't like, oh boy, this isn't a secure server. What am I going to do? Oh, no jet tonight, you know?
Okay.
People say, you know, what's your goal? What's your goal? My goal is to be sitting in front of an antitrust committee. Because then I won, you know? Please, you know, people say, oh, poor Bill Gates. My God, poor Bill Gates, my butt, you know? That is the ultimate problem to have. That's just saying, I won. Now you have a problem with it, we'll deal with it, right? But I won.
I'll shave my head and look like someone off of Star Trek. Evolve the human race to look like nothing ever seen. I'll hypnotize the world and dissolve all the countries. The presidents will all report to me.
Meeting someone so successful and self-assured really made me feel terrible about my own career choices. So I decided to go back to the fundamentals in my interviews.
Do you say GIF or GIF?
GIF,
Good.
because Jif is peanut butter.
Oh, see, that's a good reason not to say GIF.
Yeah.
GIF.
Say GIF?
Yes.
You check to them.
No, I'm just trying to think.
I say GIF.
You say GIF.
Yeah. It's graphic. Isn't it? Well, I don't even know what it stands for.
I say GIF. How is it supposed to be pronounced?
However you want it to be.
Really?
If GIF is good for you, I think that's
I think
good.
I've always said GIF. Yeah. Like the peanut butter.
I say GIF.
Do you, would you correct somebody if they said GIF?
I think I would, yeah, definitely. It's not the peanut butter, man. It's not the peanut butter.
I say GIF files.
GIF.
I say GIF.
GIF. That's good.
Is that good?
Well, I mean, it's good that you feel
The web was intended to be a cross-platform, bleeding-edge, real-time, vertical yet scalable, transforming, value-added, plug-and-play sticky e-market that had end-to-end branding functionality to monetize and leverage niche metrics through a click-and-mortar recontextualization of customized solutions that would morph, optimize, and repurpose frictionless front-end B2B and B2C out-of-the-box, yet mission-critical turnkey web-ready communities. And the architecture? Enterprise level. Alan Greenspan is the chairman of the private bank that runs the economy. In 1996, after observing the massive growth of tech and dot-com stocks under his watch, he warned that perhaps investors were suffering from what he coined irrational exuberance. This phrase has stuck as the most annoying I told you so of all time.
You know, again, hallmark of a bubble is it always goes past the point of rationality. I mean, you know, Alan Greenspan in 1996 coined the phrase irrational exuberance, and he was early.
I suspect the rationality of it was in the eye of the beholder. Greenspan is probably even more of a curmudgeon than I am, so for him it was irrational. For some of the younger kids in the dot-com world, it was utterly rational, which is a scary point too. I fall out somewhere between. I would say some of the decisions were probably irrational. I would go farther to say downright stupid.
Bubbles of this size tend to be generational events, and it takes a period that is long enough for the next generation to forget about the previous bubble to duplicate that experience again.
A lot of what went on in Silicon Valley in particular was the search for the next Netscape. Because Netscape really did take people by surprise. It doubled, and you can go back and look through the records of people saying and talking about NetScam and people saying it wasn't a business and that Jim Clark was crazy and that John Doerr was this and that. I mean, all that stuff existed then. No one paid any attention the minute that stock price doubled on the first day.
What started with Netscape and grew through Yahoo reached a surrealistic, frenzied peak with the IPO of the Globe.com in late 1998.
Yeah, Netscape was the beginning, and I think in some ways the Globe.com was the peak. Not in terms of time, but in terms of, you know, conceptually how the feeding frenzy got so great that, you know, mom and pop investor went out and paid $92 a share for this thing on the opening day, and the stock never went above that price. In fact, went straight down.
The Globe.com had everything going for it, except for a feasible business plan.
You had a company with a very questionable business model that was, at the time, the most successful initial public offering ever. And
what was the Globe? What was that all about?
that was a site that was started by two college kids at Cornell University and was basically a gathering place, an online community for with message boards and other activities. And it became very successful in terms of traffic, and it became very successful in terms of recognition and brand. There were lots of questions about how that would be turned into a revenue stream. But that was true of the internet overall. I can't point out the Globe as being particularly irrational in that sense.
The real watershed between irrational exuberance and complete insanity was the Globe IPO. That was it.
Globe IPO, you know, through the roof, and everyone's like, what just happened? So that's when all of a sudden, like, everybody just went nuts and said, I want a piece of the Globe, or Tripod, or Lycos, or Yahoo, or Amazon, or whatever it was going to be bigger than the next for a really long time.
I mean, it's like, what the hell is this? So then you had, you know, companies being formed that were just insane. Gesundheit?
The dot-com bubble grew in every major urban area in every direction. Down south in Atlanta, Georgia, a couple of brothers cooked up an application called tourdates.com for bands to post show dates online for free. The Schaefer brothers, Rob and Alan, were able to sell tour dates to Launch.com in the year 2000 for $11 million. And that's when the fun stopped.
So when we would go out to California for meetings, we were, you know...
Smallest rental car.
Smallest rental car.
Cheapest room.
Cheapest hotel rooms, and, you know, making sure that there was a Saturday stay involved in all this. What morons we were. You know, the whole time we're doing this as our responsibility as shareholders. There are people that are, you know, at the drop of a hat flying between New York and LA and spending $2,000 for plane tickets and staying at the place that Bill Clinton stays at for $275 a night on the beach in Santa Monica. And it was just, like, it was ridiculous.
I peaked out at around $5.5 million and closed out the account for about $160,000.
Ouch. Even though the $12.5 million deal wound up being a several $100,000 deal, you know, we thought we hit a home run. We really got hit by a pitch, but we still got on base.
I met up with Sidhu Namakajo in Harlem. Sidhu used to work for Boo.com. Boo was a Swedish company that took about $200 million and tried to build a global sports brand. They had offices in 18 countries. But Boo didn't work. I mean, the site literally didn't function. Boo.com in Italy made one sale. It was for a $3 keychain, which was returned to Boo, costing the company $11 in shipping and handling.
Boo suffered, again, like I said before, like a series of little bad ideas. And you have enough little bad ideas, turns the whole thing into a big bad idea. One of Boo's little bad ideas was an online character called Miss Boo. And what basically she was supposed to be the face of all the customer service reps. She was supposed to be this sexy little nymphette who would tell you what to buy and what not to buy. And at one point they talked about how if you picked the wrong outfit, she would kick you off the site and tell you not to come back. Well, one of the ideas was that Miss Boo had to have the perfect hair. So Boo.com spent about $30,000 flying in one of these world-class celebrity hairstylists to do hair on this flash animated fake character. So basically they had a real world hair designer kind of design hair for a cartoon.
That's excess. That's gross excess and irrational exuberance. That's what I would call that.
It's not that it's excess. The 7 meetings that you go to about her hair, that's excess.
Let's talk about the Aeron chair.
I began to be aware of the fact that these groups of very young, entrepreneurs started showing up regularly in the showroom, usually unannounced, usually without an appointment, and almost always because of the Aeron chair.
I've walked into offices where everybody that works there has like a $600–700 Aeron chair. I mean, really, does the guy who works in accounting need a $700 chair to sit on? I mean, really, is that worth?
Well, it's a nice chair.
It's a beautiful chair.
They're
but,
great chairs.
But when you get 300 employees and you do the math,
it's a lot of
you
money.
go, wow, we spend a lot of money on making our offices look really cool and really high tech because we're a cutting edge company. So we got to look young, we got to look hip.
The Aeron chair from Herman Miller, Business Week's Design of the Decade, and the official chair of office hockey.
We had 200 people in our office, and every one of them had one of those special chairs that are probably $800 a pop.
The Aeron chair?
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's what it is, yeah.
The well-designed, really nice mesh. It cools your ass.
The whole deal. The whole deal, that whole thing, yeah. Let's get the ass cooling. I forgot about that.
Everybody had one.
Yeah, everyone. 200 people, and you're a startup. You're like, geez, that's a lot of money on chairs. I mean, so.
Well, they want you there, though. They want you sitting, working, so they're probably thinking, let's spend on the chairs.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have one?
Yeah, I had one. It was nice.
It was nice.
Probably should have taken that home.
The chair's kind of overwhelming to people. They come in and just say, oh, I don't want that. It's too much to do. But in reality, it's just a really simple thing, because if you just drop your arms down at either side of the chair, you're touching every adjustment there is.
The Aeron chair.
Excess.
But the fact that the adjustments are right there makes it very, very easy, either to adjust the height or to adjust the tension. Just roll this knob.
Let's start with the height is down here, right?
No, the height's right here.
Okay.
Yeah. So now lift your weight up and bring the chair right up behind you.
Oh, I see. Okay.
What did you do, break my chair?
There are people who are just Aeron mechanics. That's all they do. They come in, and if you say, like, I want the arms replaced, or some of these have like a tilt forward option, which they don't all have.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you see, I need one of those because I can't work on my computer. I might have broken it.
I think you broke my chair.
Wait, maybe I have the other thing on.
No, that wouldn't affect the height adjustment. Okay, this man has broken my chair. Look at my chair. See, my chair works perfectly. My chair lowers.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, see?
Okay.
My Aeron chair was medium size. I had the large size, but I thought that might promote secretary spread, so I changed to the medium size. And it had quite a good amount of bounce, just the right amount of bounce.
On the other side,
yes.
You see I'm already have this forward knob pulled up. And that's because I like to have a little extra rock. And this is the forward 5 degree. Now, if I'm going to sit at the computer and I really want to be, kind of locked in a forward position so that I have really good lumbar support, I can sit in this locked position. I don't use my computer all day, so I don't sit this way. I unlock the chair. You hear that little disengage. And then I leave it in the forward 5 degree because I like.
I'm sorry.
The clearest examples of dot-com excess were the launch parties. These were wildly extravagant affairs costing upwards of $1 million, showcasing the likes of George Clinton, Prince, Depeche Mode. But if your goal is to get the most attention and thereby get the most financing, then having a big, flashy party sort of makes a lot of sense.
There were a lot of big companies in New York City.
Oh, yeah.
And you were a reporter. You went out to a lot of these launch parties. What were they like? What was a typical launch party like?
Huge. And a space about 10 times this size. DJ so loud you couldn't even hear it. But no one's dancing because everybody's too busy handing out business cards, that sort of thing.
I mean, we were partying like rock stars, chartering boats in the British Virgin Islands, going on shopping sprees in New York.
There was no launch party. There was no launch party.
It's incredible. We talked to these other companies that they raised $100 million. They had a huge launch party with George Clinton and all these other musicians, and then they were gone within a year.
Yeah, that's part of the mistake. There were companies that were being run for the excitement of the business rather than the business fundamentals.
Like Concrete Media, for instance, had this party where you walk in and everyone's like in these like garage mechanic suits in yellow, and they were you walk in and there's candle lights all over, like everywhere, and they're like, to the right is a sushi bar, to the left is a massage, and the vodka bar's in the far corner, and then a regular bar, and then there's smoke and a dance floor going on, and sushi chefs, and then massage chairs, and I'm like, maybe that's why they went out of business. Oh my God, yeah, no doubt.
They had a launch party and they had the B-52s there.
I used to go out 4 or 5 nights a week between what was going on in Silicon Valley and all the craziness in San Francisco. It got to the point where I stopped going to launch parties because there were too many.
Upper management of our company allegedly was, having sex at the party or after the party or something like that with lower rung employees in the company, and things that were just stupid, things you don't do.
I drank a lot of bad white wine, let me tell you. Really? Yeah, although the wine in Northern California is pretty good.
Every year, WinStar would go on the road and do something called a road show, where they would travel from city to city to companies that they, or cities that they were doing business in. And it was basically this extravagant, lush, glad-handing type of thing, where the top management guys would come on stage and say how great it is and how much revenue we're going to make, and we're going to be the next AOL, and we're well on target for EBITDA positive. And there'd be this lush buffet of seafood and meat, and it was drinks, and it was great. And last January, end of January, early February, we had one, and it was wonderful. And 2 months later, they filed for bankruptcy.
I went to some good launch parties in my day. I ate a lot of chilled shrimp, but I never saw anything like the launch party they had for IAM.com.
And there were, I don't know how many invitations, but there was a PR company that was hired by IAM.com to put together this party and make sure that it was like the smash event of the Oscar week out in Los Angeles. In order to start the party, they started off with like skin props in the party.
These are people. These are like out of work actors who are
hired hands that look a specific way to make the party look like it's cool.
And when the party gets full, they file out.
So
but they're there to make it look great.
They gradually leave.
Yes.
So they gradually leave. It's like the party is full from like 6 p.m. And like it's just like a few of them leave as more people show up, and then a few more leave. So this party is going from the beginning. It's it's like what they do for an Academy Awards party. It's a good thing, but expensive.
What about the venture capitalists? Did they get in?
I mean, unfortunately, they weren't my duty to get into the party.
The VCs, no.
I didn't. The VCs were somebody else's responsibility, but it was the same problem. So you can imagine, $48 million later, these guys who have put all this money in, they can't get into the party because these party promoters won't let them in the door.
Spend that money. $14 an hour. Do you know how much $14 an hour was to me? That was like $1 million.
Started ordering $100 shots of cognac.
They went and they spent a couple $100,000 trying to develop a new logo.
Upwards of $35 million.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
60 grand, $90K.
But still $500,000, right?
Then we could generate $60 million, hundreds of millions of dollars.
$200 million.
$3.5 million.
$12 million.
200, 400, 600.
I think that I took it very hard, personally, because I was in a position where I had teams. I had people that worked with me, or that I had worked with on so many projects and had gone through the whole blood, sweat, and tears thing, and And you know every day going into work that something's going to happen. You know that no one's telling you that it's going to happen. You know that you're not being given options about your own career. A lot of people were given opt-outs, and I think that given that opportunity, the situation may have been different. But every day, it was every day for maybe 2 months of just coming into the office wondering if today's going to be your last day at work. Then the day before the first round of layoffs happened, whisper started, someone from senior team accidentally said something in the men's room or blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, after work, everybody's going out to talk about this, and is it really going to happen finally? And we've been waiting, and why isn't anybody telling us this? And we would have these meetings with management. No, everything's fine. We're not going to have layoffs. They look you right in the eye and say, no, everything's fine. We're not going to have layoffs, you know. And I said to him that I have a little brother who is Down syndrome, and he's in school, and I pay for his school, and I'm able to pay for his school because of my job, and that I can't work day to day like this, worrying about taking care of him, and I can't let my family keep worrying. I mean, we were, for so many months, just a mess, everybody wondering what the next day would bring, and if we would have to take John out of school, or, you know, who knows what. And it wasn't a sacrifice that I was willing to make. That's the one thing I've committed to in my life that I need to make happen.
Did he tell you eventually, before you were laid off?
He didn't even tell me the day I was laid off, and this was January 18th. And I had a phone message that our chief managing officer, or whatever his title was, wanted to see me in his office, and I went down there, and he said, I only have 5 minutes, I have to go. And I'm like, I need to know what's going on. I don't want to go through the day like this. He said, I can't talk about it now, and he left and went to a meeting, and he didn't come back. So at maybe lunchtime, I inquired again, and he didn't come back, and then maybe 5 o'clock that day, I was called into Human Resources.
Is working for a dotcom something you're going to do again?
Never.
I would also be very distressed at the way at which a lot of these dotcoms have been, handing out the pink slips. I heard that one of them sent an email and asking all the employees to report to a certain conference room in a hotel across the street in 15 minutes. Or some companies which didn't even tell anybody. And the manner in which everything is carried out without a proper explanation or an apology. I think an apology was required. If I were the CEO of a failed dotcom and I was laying off people, I would probably call out the people who I'm laying off and tell them that I'm very sorry for all the promises that I made to you. I'm sorry I could not keep them, and that's how probably I would do it.
So I don't have a job anymore, and I don't have any money. I didn't get any severance when I got canned, but I stole a lot of shit from the office before I left. You know, I used to wonder about these people who'd be like hanging out like on a Tuesday afternoon looking like they got nothing to do and nowhere to go and being like, what's their deal? Now I'm one of those people wonder about. So I woke up on the late side because I can't seem to sleep at night anymore for a variety of reasons. When I finally got out of bed, I stared at the wall for a while and drank some coffee and stared at the wall. Then I went on my computer and fucked around and looked at stuff and like typed stuff for breakfast or whatever. I ate some fudge stripe cookies and Pringles Then I relaxed and watched some TV for a little while. Around noon, I decided to try and figure out what the hell I'm gonna do about this whole no work, no money situation. I thought about trying to figure out some kind of scam to make some quick money, but I couldn't really think of anything good. Then I thought about how I should really do some volunteer work, and help out with the community. And the fact that I seriously considered volunteering made me feel better about not volunteering. After that, I spaced out for a bit and fantasized about what I'm gonna do after I win the lottery. Then I decided I was gonna write a movie script. But after a half page or so, I got kind of bored, and I found out it's really hard to write a whole movie. So I turned to TV for inspiration. Then I had what you'd call a panic attack. I freaked out about ending up living in a box on the street or moving back in with my parents into my old room with my sports banners and trophies and Def Leppard poster. Finally, around 2 o'clock, I got the motivation to go outside and stuff. But outside is kind of hard when you have no money. It's you can't buy any ice cream because you have no money, and you can't go shopping because you have no money. When you're not working, you start to realize how money is really important and stuff. So I put myself on a tight budget to make sure I save money for the essentials.
I heard about all the loads of money people were making selling off the assets of dot-coms, and so I went down to Northern Virginia to check out one of the auctions. They were selling everything. Servers, chairs, routers, the company's welcome mat. Okay, I'll admit that at first I thought of these people selling and buying this equipment as vultures, picking at the bones of my generation's dreams. But then I realized that maybe I was laying the metaphor on a little thick here, and that these were just businessmen trying to make a buck off of other people's foolishness.
We're here to take a look at the dot-com fallout and see what type of technology is out there, what's available, what they purchased. What we're finding out is with other people's money, the dot-coms really bought a lot of high-quality merchandise.
Started out, got an opening bid from the internet of $400. Then I'm going to get 5. 5, I'm going to get 5, 4 now, 6, 6, I'm going to get 4 now, 7. 7, I'm going to get 7, 4 now, take as many as you want. 6, if I get 7, 4.
We are the recyclers. We're taking product that once was very useful to one company and turning it into a product that's going to be very useful to another.
It's a television, Zenith, 27-inch, we'll look at there, $100 short it. $100, I'm going to get 1 for it now.
We have been very, very busy selling dot-coms. We've sold about 50 dot-coms, technology companies, telecom companies. Virtually, we've seen the whole ripple effect of the internet implosion, and we're essentially recycling assets.
There's a misconception in the marketplace that used assets don't have any value. You always hear the term 5 cents on the dollar, 10 cents on the dollar. Well, the fact is that what makes the dot-coms a little unique is that there's really not that emotional attachment to the assets. Usually you have an entrepreneur who's come in with a great idea, got a bunch of venture capital money, flew high for a year or two, and the thing bombed, and now he's on his way to another project. It's nothing personal. That's not the way it used to be.
We actually had an auction that we advertised, we organized, and it was all the way up to the night before the auction. We got a phone call around 6 o'clock, and they said, you know, we might have to take a few of these items out because we leased them, we don't own them. And then about 10 o'clock, they took some more out, and then about 11 o'clock, they said, you know, we don't own any of this stuff. And so we had to pull the auction.
Phil Kaplan is an opportunist, but at heart, he's a techie. He's a programmer. He's the kind of guy who remembers the name of the first color JPEG porn file he ever got off to. As the bubble burst, Phil, under the screen alias PUD, started a site called Fucked Company that has chronicled the dot-com flameouts in a way that only the net can, with inside information, a dot-com Deadpool game, and hundreds and thousands of obscene, yet poignant, anonymous postings.
Let's start by figuring out, or just talking about, how Fuck Company came about.
Fuck Company pretty much started as a joke. It still kind of is a joke. It's a Deadpool game sort of based on the classic celebrity death pool, and you can pick which dot-com companies you think are going to go out of business and what's going to happen to them, and you can accumulate points and play against your friends. And then to award points, I would have to always sort of write the news. And but not so much the news. I would write 2 sentences saying, you know, this company laid off 100 people. This company did this company did that. And I wasn't trying to make it a news site. I just needed to say, like, oh, this is why you got points if you picked, you know, Priceline or something like that. Meanwhile, people used to just come just to read the little quips that I would write, and the game sort of became secondary. So now the main focus of the site are just the little pieces that I write. For $75 a month, you can read all of the tips that I get unfiltered, or you can search through all of them.
How's that going? I mean, as a business, how's Fuck Company?
So far, there are about 1,200 subscribers, so it's bringing in about 90 grand a month.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm happy.
And it looks like you don't have a lot of overhead here. It's
No, I have no overhead at all. I do the whole site myself. I wrote the site in about a weekend. Spend a couple hours every day updating it. It's a lot of fun.
Did you have to do any promotion to make the site popular?
I sent it to 6 of my friends when I launched the site, and about a week later there were 20,000 people signed up.
It turns out that a wide variety of people made money off the failure of the dot-coms, including the scripophilists.
I'm a scripophilist. Scripophily is the hobby of collecting antique stocks and bonds. I've been collecting my whole life. I've been selling out here for 5 years. And basically the idea is you buy a canceled or a worthless stock in a company of your choosing. I have over 5,000 different companies.
So every time a company goes out of business, it increases business for you?
Yes.
And you got some dot-com stocks for us?
We do. We have eToys.
eToys,
okay,
beautiful.
Which is definitely worth more dead than alive. Okay, this is selling on the internet for $150.
Wow.
We have egghead.com. We had a whole slew of them, but we sold most of them out.
Well, people are buying up the old
They're buying
stocks.
old, yes. Well, they buy everything, but in particular, because the dot-coms are scarce, because not too many people thought of, A, buying it when it was on its way down, and B, getting delivery of the certificate, which involves more brouhaha. Like you have to pay extra. You have to pay a certificate fee and pay the brokerage. So when it's down to like $1 a share or 50 cents a share, you don't want to pay like $15 to the broker and another $50 for the certificate. So most people just like shine it on, and it ends up becoming a rare collectible.
What a time to go to work.
Well, at least we got someplace to go at 7 in the morning. Hey, what's Mr. O'Loughlin doing down here?
Good morning, fellas. I wanted to get hold of you before you got into your uniforms. This is the day the electricians are going to start working on the elevators. As you must have known for a long time, we've been planning on putting in automatic elevators. I hope you've made plans. Take the day off. See the girl, she'll give you your paycheck. And, I'm sorry. Good luck.
Nationwide, the wave of dot-com failures also swept away hundreds of thousands of non-internet related jobs in businesses that were left holding contracts with defunct dot-coms. And the dot-com failure contributed to the recession that began in 2001. And in New York and around the nation, former dot-com employees sought comfort and potential employment in a new cultural phenomenon, the pink slip party.
In 2000, the company that I was working at lost its funding. We had a party. I put together a party because I was like the company cheerleader, and I said, we can't say goodbye this way. Let's have a wake. So we had an Irish wake, and basically we invited everybody who'd ever worked at the company. Interns, to contributors, to editors, to advertising people and clients. And we said goodbye. We said goodbye the right way. We laughed, we cried, we had a roast. It got ugly, but it was fun. Anyhow, went off to Italy, snowboarded, did my own thing, found myself, whatever you want to say. Just needed, I slept for 2 weeks straight.
After I got home, I was kind of tired, so I decided to take like a 20-minute power nap. But it ran kind of long.
Came back and decided, I could do something very similar to the wake that I threw for my old company for, other dot-commers who thought, they sort of lost their job and maybe lost their way. And, sort of bring back the aura of what was special about being a dot-commer, but say goodbye the right way. So first party we had was in July of 2000, and it was sort of instantaneous because out of nowhere, recruiters came to the party. I didn't even invite these guys. I don't know how they found out about it, but they found out about it. Because back then, the employment market was so red hot, tight. You could not, like, there were no bodies left to put in any company. So, like, you know, a layoff, a company imploding was like a cheer at every other company.
So the pink slip parties are for people who...
Well, they're for the entire community, not
Okay.
just people who have been, you know, downsized or pink slipped. They're for the entire .com community, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do here is bring together the community and all of the communal resources.
What are these?
Recognize, pinks are for pink slippers, they're bracelets.
Okay.
Green are for recruiters.
Okay.
And blue are for friends and supporters.
Can I have one of the blue ones?
You can have any one you want. No, I'm kidding.
Visual Basic and ASP programming, anybody? Yes? Give me a card.
I don't have a card. I'm just visiting, but
Do you live in New York?
I'd like to, yes.
Okay. How are you going to remember this? Penny Hart at AOL.
Okay.
P-E-N-N-Y H-A-R-T.
Do I say GIF or GIF? I say GIF.
You say GIF, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Graphic, I can't remember what, yeah, I say GIF.
Yeah,
GIF is a peanut butter.
I know.
A GIF.
You say GIF. Would you correct somebody if they said GIF?
No.
What?
I used to say GIF, but now I say GIF. You say potato, I say potato. Sometimes I go back and forth. What's the proper pronunciation? GIF.
No, I don't really. I would correct someone if. How
about if they said GIF?
Yeah, definitely GIF. Definitely GIF. GIF and GIF, that's okay.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, do I say GIF or GIF? GIF.
It's GIF?
Oh, I say GIF. I just like GIF better.
Okay, you wouldn't correct anybody then?
Oh, I wouldn't correct anybody. No, people wouldn't say GIF, absolutely. They're wrong, but GIF's a much cleaner, clearer, easy way to say it.
It's a GIF.
GIF?
Are we right?
Yes, you're right. Congratulations.
Blame is a fascinating concept. For instance, who's really to blame for, say, Rocky V? Sylvester Stallone, or the people who went and saw Rocky IV? Maybe we won't ever have a good answer about who's to blame with the .coms, but this shouldn't stop us from pointing fingers.
I know there are tons of fingers being pointed around.
It's the public that's responsible. The reason the public is responsible is people started to look at the numbers and the size that the internet could grow to. And they realized that, my God, Amazon.com could be as big as 10 Walmarts.
It was every kid in high school. It was everyone you found on the street had some master plan for ruling the universe.
Here's what happened. The people responsible for the whole mess were the venture capitalists and the marketing people.
We have a mandate from the company, spend.
In fact, I think that's probably the post-millennial thing, is you're not in it to make money. You're in it to waste other people's money.
I have teenagers, and teenagers believe that an allowance is merely an open-ended funnel for their device to get money, and there is no cap to it. And many of these entrepreneurs struck me eerily, although I didn't say that to them at the time, as my teenagers. There will always be more money because people will want to give me more money. And I don't necessarily have to earn it, it's just my reward for existence.
There is definitely a big scam element to it. I think that there were a lot of entrepreneurs and investment banks and salespeople and lawyers and lots of people in the game that knew that these companies were never going to be profitable. And they had no intention of actually building real businesses. What they did have intention of doing is pumping up their stock and making money through the Wall Street game and selling it to your mom and dad's pension fund and our college stock fund and things like that. And so there are a lot of people who did that game who really didn't build real businesses.
So at one point I went to San Francisco and I'm at this bar with some friends of mine and this guy comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, are you the guy who runs fuckcompany.com?" I was like, yeah, hey, nice to meet you. And he goes, and he gives me his card, and it was like CEO bbq.com. And I was like, oh, sorry, like, I just wrote some awful things about you, about your company. He's like, no, man, it's cool. Like, I totally like your site. I have 10,000 points. It's really fun. And I was like, all right, so like, now that you're cool, like, what were you thinking? Like, what was this? And he said, he goes, I love barbecue.
Your right to exist as a corporation is driven by your ability to return something to your shareholders. Whether your shareholders are public, private, or some hybrid thereof. That's your right to exist.
Pets.com going public was the beginning of the end. Dog food FedEx to your house.
First to bat, the venture capitalist.
That's just who they are and what they do. They're gamblers, okay? So they put their chips in 10 slot machines, expecting that 9 of them are going to come up lemons. But the one will pay for them all. You see, the thing is that they had such a long, lucky streak that they grew crazier and crazier and crazier until they weren't just betting on a few slot machines, they were placing bets on every table in the house simultaneously.
I really believe it starts with the venture capital community.
There's no question the VCs were, many of them, not all of them by any shot, but many of them were spread too thin to be able to add value, contribute, and manage the companies that they had helped invest in and help grow.
They didn't have the bandwidth.
They didn't have the bandwidth.
Well, there's smart VCs and there's dumbass VCs, and when you're either and you get lucky, then it's a lot easier to be a dumbass because you start playing a numbers game. 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20. All it takes, because the hits are so big, you just throw it up against the wall and see what sticks. And so the VCs put money into people based off a concept, based off of domain names. Please. They got exactly what they deserved. If you go into a crack house and and you think you're going to find the girl of your dreams, you're going to be surprised. They got exactly what they deserved.
There's a great line in the movie Body Heat. I don't know if you remember that movie.
I remember the movie a little bit.
Well, Mickey Rourke is this arsonist, and he's sitting up on the bunk bed, and the music's blasting as William Hurt is trying his hand as a lawyer who wants to blow up this building. And finally, Mickey Rourke turns down the music, and he says, if there's 50 ways to fuck up a crime, and you can think of 30, you're a genius, and you ain't no genius. I think that's the venture business. There's 50 ways for a venture to go wrong, and you've got to think of at least 30, and know whether you can manage through those and whether acceptable risk or not. And then the other 20 you'll deal with as they come.
It wasn't just VCs who get a bad rap. CEOs and entrepreneurs are also painted as bad guys. But there's a thin line between evil and confused.
Many of these companies saw they were in trouble and they reached for the accelerator. And they punched the accelerator hoping that they would impress a new round of funding or impress a potential acquirer. And they blasted into the brick wall.
You had too many people who were the so-called experts, the VCs who were giving you the money, Wall Street who was giving you the money, saying, go out and spend the money and build yourself the mind share you need to succeed, to be that number one in the long run.
The guys that were building it, that were in the trenches, fighting the fight and doing the war and knowing everything about technology and how the markets were going, were young kids,
Too young?
Too young.
Venture capitalists and others relying too much on the management of people who were, probably too young, not because they weren't bright, not because they didn't have a good vision, but simply because, when it comes through managing through difficult times, they haven't been there before.
I kind of like poke at the people who dare to say that these kids and these grown-ups and these adults did not really apply themselves, because they may not have had the best business plan, they may not have been focused on all the right things and growing a business, but no one can ever say that they didn't work hard to make those businesses work.
I believe the techies are the drones of the new order. And so, everybody needs to give good tech at some point, and the techies will always find a place to go because people need good tech.
And now, a few words from the drones.
Look at the internet. Who do you think built that? It wasn't the CEOs, Somebody had to fucking build the thing.
I think that the problem was simply that there's no barrier to entry on the internet. You and I can open up a web design company with $50,000 or $5 million. And there's no necessary correspondence between the amount of money that we get and the quality of work that we get.
We have a mandate from the company, spend. And we spent. And spent. And spent. And spent. And now there's nothing left to spend because it's all gone.
You know, you read these stories about dot-com people who are at homeless shelters. It's like, go get a job at McDonald's. I mean, there's just, it doesn't make any sense.
They can't get options, though.
I know.
There were these huge consulting firms that popped up in the 1990s to help dot-com spend their cash quicker. They built the websites, they helped with the marketing, and made sure that the client believed at all times that they were worth the millions that were spent on them. These were the consulting and design firms like Razorfish, IXL, and March 1st. I figure it would be smart to talk to my brother Peter about them, since he saw the growth of IXL from the inside as a programmer and a manager. And luckily for our movie, he'd just recently been laid off.
Well, there's some things I don't understand here about what happened. Okay, the consultants are making all their money off of these sites.
Right.
But by charging these sites as much as they can possibly charge them, they're sort of, you know, they shortened the run of the internet and shortened, in fact, their own lives, right?
Well, I don't think anybody viewed it as there being any end in sight. I don't think that people who were in the situation in '99 or '98 was thinking, hey, this thing's going to end. We better get ours quick. It was that there's no end in sight. There's going to be a never-ending train of dot-coms who want to do, you know, come and do business, because it's not like the internet's not like physical space, right? There's an infinite number of, you know, shoe stores that could be on the internet.
Web consulting firms bankrupted a lot of companies.
The prices for the services they were getting were outrageous, but when they started, nobody knew that. You know, nobody knew what something cost. Who knew what it took to make a website, or who knew what it took to build the back-end shopping cart for an e-tail business? Who knew?
Most senior executives in these larger companies still had secretaries printing out their email for them and putting it in folders. That tells you how technical savvy they were.
And they would come to us because we did know, and if we didn't know, we would say we knew and figure it out.
So could they be overcharged? It was like selling whiskey to the Indians. Okay, it was easy.
Do you feel you were overcharging?
I remember at one point, I only speak personally for myself, I remember at one point my hourly rate was $3.75.
What was it like? It was like the Lucille Ball pie conveyor belt routine. It was like the dot-coms were coming down a conveyor belt, and we were just trying to get them off and out the door as fast as possible. And if you're familiar with that shtick, a lot of pie got spilled. There was a lot of pies that went off the end of the conveyor belt and just dropped on the floor.
That's a good story, but it was candy. It wasn't pies.
It was pies. It was pies.
It wasn't pies. I mean, I saw the episode. It was candy. She was dipping candies.
It was pies.
The financial analysts told people which hot stocks to buy during the bubble. Now, the analysts are being investigated by the government because some of their aggressive recommendations appear, in hindsight, to lie somewhere between ill-informed and shady.
It's easy to have 20/20 hindsight. Maybe the analysts did the best they could, or maybe they pumped and dumped.
Well, most of the government investigation is with the Wall Street analysts. And I think it raises an important question, which is that investment banking and research were supposed to have a Chinese wall. It was clear, as somebody who listened to the pitches on selecting investment bankers, that the Chinese wall had become a Chinese menu. You want the cash flow story, you want the PE growth story. So they had been completely blurred. And to the extent there's a perception, although I don't know with who, that the analysts were objective, then I think that's got to get corrected.
What role did the media play in this?
Well, less, I think, than some people would suggest. I mean, I don't believe the media necessarily fanned the flames. I mean, we were responding to audience interest in many ways. I mean, you could not argue that viewers and investors, individual investors, weren't interested, and we somehow turned them on to internet investing by virtue of talking about it. I mean, there was a huge demand for information on internet investments. There was an enormous demand to hear from high-profile analysts who would later be vilified for their role in the internet bubble, but everybody wanted to know where Amazon was going. Was it going to 200, 400, 600, 1,000, whatever the ultimate, projection was? And people just wanted to hear that. And once they heard 1,000, they bought more of the stock.
There were tons of people that rushed in thinking that the whole world and the whole economy had changed, and there was a ton of money out there. And frankly, the media fed that. We saw all these examples of kids getting rich overnight, and tons of people flocked into this because it looked so easy to make money.
The venture capitalists would fund a company. The company would buy a lot of advertising in one of the new age publications, new business publications. Those publications would have that much more money to invest in hiring new reporters who would go and cover new industries that the venture capitalists would read about. And they were all scratching each other's back simultaneously. And it was clear that all of this grew in concert.
So now we've heard from all the players in the game. But what about the men behind the curtain, the investment banks? Here's how investment banks made huge profits on the IPOs. The investment bank was the casino. Institutional investors and VCs were the big money players, and the dot-com IPO was the game. What happened was the investment banks told the big money players where to bet, knowing that the greater fools, the public investors, would come in and place money on the same tables. What the institutional investors got back was big money when they sold their stock on the first day to the latecomers. And in return, the investment banks, like Credit Suisse First Boston, received a kickback of up to a quarter of the profits from the IPO.
Frequently, when a company's taken public, only a little bit of the stock is sold on the markets at that time. And those shares were rising a lot in value. And so it was very desirable to be able to get those shares. And that put the investment bank in a very enviable position because they would typically control who got the shares of the initial public offering. So there's a lot of questions about the techniques they used in allocating those initial shares.
The investment banks are like Santa Claus, little boy, only they come every day.
Okay.
And they take 7% off the tops. That's the only bad thing about this Santa Claus.
The fact is that Wall Street aggressively dropped its underwriting standards during the height of the internet boom, and anything could come public. I mean, you could get money for any concept at all. Didn't matter if it was a great business model. If it had an internet component to it, if it had .com at the end of the name, you were in.
The U.S. Attorney's Office has alleged, and this is all the Wall Street Journal, has alleged that Credit Suisse demanded not only aftermarket purchases, as they're called, but also very high commissions. So, for example, the standard broker's commission is a couple of pennies on the share. But when you're trading 10,000, 20,000 blocks of stock, it comes up to a nice buck, okay? Credit Suisse First Boston is alleged to have demanded in excess of that, up to $1, and in some cases they say higher, per share per trade.
Really?
Yeah. That is also illegal.
When Credit Suisse got busted for these kickbacks, as this movie goes to print, they settled with the SEC and the NASD for $100 million. And the investor lawsuits against them and other investment banks haven't even begun yet. The VCs, investment banks, and sell-side analysts need to be held accountable because they actually understood what was going on with the bubble, but they did it anyway. That being said, they weren't robbing banks here. They were just doing the American thing, making something sound a whole lot better than it actually is. It's that concept that plays upon the most basic of human emotions: greed. Greed is the hot air that makes a bubble float. But greed doesn't make us bad people, just stupid.
The internet euphoria was built by greed in terms of companies, people believing that they had this God-given right to tremendous wealth because they were associated with an internet company.
If anybody had done any homework at all, you would have seen this was the same thing all over. When an industry's hot, money piles into it because the people who are smart money, right, they figure they can pay attention to who else is buying. And they know if there's enough greater fools coming in, they have a way to get out. And as long as the fools keep on rushing in, they'll keep on buying because they're watching on a minute-by-minute, day-by-day basis.
The internet euphoria was driven by everyday individuals who thought they could invest and create their first million, a second million, a third million as a result of the new company that they think they might have discovered.
The whole stock market's a greater fool theory, and for whatever reason, people didn't realize that.
You guys say GIF or GIF?
GIF.
I say GIF.
You're right. Well, it's okay.
I'm sorry?
I'm back and forth on that one. GIF, typically. Sometimes I will throw the GIF in there. Depends on the mood I'm in.
The
It depends on the day. I say GIF and GIF. It depends on who I'm talking to.
I guess I say GIF.
GIF, okay. We're just asking everybody that. One of the things that...
GIF sounds too much like Jiffy Pop, or if I have to say GIF.
Yeah. Most people go GIF, by the way, so you're in good company.
As long as I'm cool.
GIF.
GIF?
GIF.
GIF.
3 GIFs in a row. I mean...
And I had no clue what that was for a really long time.
So you...
I thought those people that say GIF were just, they're techies and they were just being dumb. It's GIF. It's a GIF. Yeah. No, not dumb techies. They were being dumb.
Oh, okay.
Techies are very smart.
Do you say GIF or GIF?
GIF, generalized image format. That's
You know
what it's an abbreviation for.
So it's generalized
image
format.
GIF. You mean GIF as in GIF, the picture format? I would say GIF.
But would you correct somebody if they said GIF?
Yes, I would. I probably would. If I could and the circumstances were right, and if I believed that the other person would not take it in the wrong way.
Do you have any rationale for why it should be GIF instead of GIF?
I don't know, actually. I don't even know if that's the right.
But you would correct somebody.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Having said that, yeah, I'm not sure that's... Well, what's the correct one?
We don't know. we're just asking people.
I learned a lot talking to people about the dot-com bubble, but I don't think that our government actually learned anything. A few fines were levied here and there, but there were no real changes in the manner in which publicly traded companies were regulated. I wonder how many dot-coms, and Enrons for that matter, will occur before things really start to change. So, if it's not up to the government...
It's a good place for inspiration,
It's up to us. How will future generations learn from our mistakes? We need a physical reminder, a monument to the dot-coms, so that one day we might build a more perfect internet.
A monument to the dot-com economy.
Take your time.
Okay, a monument to the dot-com economy.
Maybe part of the symbol is the Dymaxion map of Buckminster Fuller. Part of it might be the synaptic structure of the brain, or maybe it's a virtual reality monument.
I would say a big golden piggy bank with wooden nickels.
Pyramid.
Pyramid.
Maybe it could just be the graph of the NASDAQ, because that is a pyramid. It's more like the Transamerica Tower, actually. In fact, maybe just rename the Transamerica Tower as...
We'll rebrand something that's already there.
Rebrand it as the Internet Boom and Bust.
I think it should be an 18-story delete key somewhere next to the pyramid in San Francisco, the Transamerica building. Just a large delete key.
Maybe it's not a physical monument. Maybe it's a monument that exists in cyberspace, because in the future, that's where people will be able to see it from all over the world.
It would have to be something that involves a circle.
You see, this would work. This would work. I mean, it's not big enough. It's like a model, but something really, really basic. Just black and low humming sounds and clicking sounds come from it. I mean, I can imagine that it's sort of like found art, when the guy put the toilet in the museum. We could find a memorial. We don't even have to build anything. We could just find something and put a sign on it. Boom, it's done.
A circle. Whether it's, just a walk where you go around like Mecca, going around something, okay? Because everyone was attracted to it, and then you just simply find yourself walking in circles.
It won't be easy to convince the powers that be to build a dot-com monument, since nobody really died in the bubble, except Timothy Leary. But we've got some really great ideas for monuments.
People like this kind of thing. They can walk around on it. It's great.
Sort of a long modem cable unplugged from a wall. Like a 10-foot high electric socket with like the cable unplugged.
An obelisk of, with little bitty names of all the dot-coms that were registered.
And some really bad ideas.
What material would you build it out of?
Feces.
Nobody's going to want to go to this monument. A fecal dot?
I think it's a bull taking a crap.
The lungfish, I mean, was a critical part of the evolutionary game, you know.
Coming out of the water.
Coming out of the water, and like there aren't lungfish around anymore, and yet, you know, you kind of look back down the line. It's hard for us to admit that our, you know, great-great-grandparents were lungfish, you know, because we have a much more high view of ourselves. But in a sense, the dot-coms really are the genetic parents of what's going to happen with these extraordinary science fiction realities that we're about to step into.
I like it. I like it. This is the kind of thing I want to do.
But mostly, we've got great ideas.
The little lucite tombstone things, when you go public or when you do a big financing deal, they give you these, and I don't have, you know, I don't think I have any of them laying around still. They're almost bad luck these days.
We are ourselves a product of some tremendous creative force which we've called evolution. And we can see in the fossil record this tremendous ability to spin out new forms and new capabilities, on and on and on. And we're the current version of that. And then we've externalized now evolution into our tool making, so we can go back from levers and wheels right on through to the latest artificial intelligence algorithms, and the algorithm itself is a tool. And so you put all this together and you can kind of see here's a parallel evolutionary event taking place, and the dot-coms are maybe the lungfish. Do you see what I mean? They're a necessary transition step from individual computers to a network of synaptic intelligences that are going to form some kind of new global mind or new kind of global intelligence, which will interact with the human intelligence in ways that we can't yet predict.
I think it should involve lots of people's business cards that they got.
Yeah, here's mine. It should definitely have a swoosh in it somewhere.
A swirl or
some
swoosh.
kind of swoosh or something, and it's got to talk.
Chances are, bubbles are going to happen for as long as there are people and markets. Belief in exponential growth will lead to immature investments, and overfunded startup companies will spend their money on rooms full of toys. Unless we build our monument.
The only